CeeDee Lamb and Drake London are two wide receivers that we are voiding at their draft cost this season. We tell you why, plus reveal four other wide receivers to stay away from on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today, we're going to be discussing 6 wide receivers that we feel have bad draft value in for 2025 fantasy drafts this year. 2 of them will be guys that are being drafted early in drafts. 2 are going in the middle rounds, and then we'll discuss 2 wide receivers that are going later in drafts. We're still not interested in drafting them despite their low cost. So, Vinny, let's start with your least favorite, highly drafted wide receiver to target in the early rounds of drafts.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Drake London. Now, I've just never been a huge fan of his game. Like, I was kind of surprised in his draft that he went as the first wide receiver off the board. Now, we saw some of that last year and kind of materialize with his big playability and size, strength. That's what he does, right? He can rack up the points and do that, but I'm just not excited about Drake London. I mean, I don't understand necessarily his rise, right? Last year he was wide receiver 14 on average. He's now ranked at wide receiver 9. I don't consider him a top 10 receiver in reality or fantasy in this league. I just don't. There's just too many value guys that you can look at. We've talked about Ladd McConkey right behind him as an example. We even have A.J. Brown, I think, going behind him in a lot of leagues. These are guys I'd much rather have than Drake London on my team because, again, I don't think Drake London can necessarily take over a game and lead you to victory. Like, he's going to be solid, and he's going to get some games where he has some big reception totals and touchdowns and yards, but I don't know if he's a guy that you're just going to bang the table for to get a special season out of him. And then you look at like a Terry McLaurin type also. Like, I think I'd rather target him. So McLaurin, McConkey, some of these guys that I just have a lot more interest in and appeal from their role and what they're going to do in their offense and really their talent and skill set overall. And again, you have the transition here. You don't have Kirk Cousins anymore. Now, there were some good numbers late with London and Michael Penix, but it's not a diss on Penix. I think Penix actually might be a little bit better at spreading the ball around a little bit more and use his weapons. So Kirk Cousins tends to be more confident about throwing downfield, right? Penix has a big arm, but I think you'll see maybe just spreading the ball around a little bit, using the short to intermediate routes. I don't think Drake London is always great at those. Like, he's just a big dude who goes up and gets the ball, and I think he gets confused with Mike Evans. He has to show us the consistency that Mike Evans has, and Mike Evans is yet another player I would take ahead of Drake London. So he just doesn't excite me, Michelle. Like Bijan Robinson, his teammate, when I said avoid him, is just the draft spot, right? Number 1 overall, you're going to be let down. There's no reason you need to target Drake London. There's guys around him, before him, after him, that have higher upside, more interesting floors, just interesting ceilings. I just don't need Drake London on my team when I can go elsewhere and get what I'm looking for as my wide receiver 1.
Yeah, with Drake London, I mean, you're drafting him in wide receiver 9, and he only had 3 weeks last year that he was even a top 12 wide receiver on the week, with a ton of weeks in there where he was like ranked as a wide receiver 30th or worst in fantasy points on that week. I mean, it was really just 2 big games on the year with a lot of mediocre games. Like, you're fine with this 14, 15, 16, 15 point games, but those aren't the type of points that you're looking for from the guy that you're taking at the top of the second round as a 9th wide receiver off the board. And honestly, his biggest game of the year came in week 18 when, Darnell Mooney wasn't playing. He had 18 targets in that game. Like, that's just not something you can count on for him seeing that many targets in any given game. So yeah, I'm with you. I do think he's being highly overrated this year. He's going too early in drafts. Now, my guy is CeeDee Lamb. He's going as a wide receiver 3 behind only Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And it's like people aren't worried about last year whatsoever. They're just kind of throwing it away and putting him right back here at the top. He was the wide receiver 8 in total points, wide receiver 11 on average last year. Not the worst year ever, like still fine, but he was a wide receiver 1 in 2023 and was going this early in drafts again last year. He was even considered as the 101 in some drafts last year. So he was a big disappointment. Now, yes, he was much better when Dak Prescott was there last year and Dak went down and he had to play with a backup for half a year. But I mean, in 2 of the last 3 years, he averaged 14 points per game. It was that 2023 season that was the outlier, I think, where his massive 19.8 points per game with 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns. And he relies so much on a huge target share. And with George Pickens now being there, I do think he's going to steal a ton of targets. I mean, he hasn't had really any competition at the wide receiver position. Jake Ferguson has been the second most targeted guy on the Cowboys in each of the last 2 years. George Pickens is definitely the best wide receiver that CeeDee Lamb has played with. And Lamb in the 6 games that he had more than 10 targets last year averaged 17.7 points per game. But in the other 9 games, when he had 10 or fewer targets, so it's still a massive number, he averaged only 11.8 points per game in half PPR. And even in his 2023 massive blow-up season, you can look at the same exact numbers. In games with more than 10 targets, he averaged 28.7 points per game. But in the other games, it was 13.5 points per target if he had 10 or fewer targets. So everything with this man just depends on massive, massive target volume. And I have to believe that George Pickens takes at least a solid chunk of that away.
Yeah, this is a good call. And I was the one going really aggressive in the previous shows, Lamar Jackson, Bijan Robinson. It's your turn in this show, so I'm glad you did that with CeeDee Lamb. And you're right. I don't think he should be lumped in with just definitely not Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He's just not that type of receiver. He's a little bit, again, as he's come to the league like DeAndre Hopkins, kind of this wiry guy who can line up everywhere, make some plays, and do the damage. And he's been very good as a reality receiver and as a fantasy receiver. But again, he's not worth this level of cost. I think he's more of an 8 to 12 receiver than a 1 through 5 receiver that you're looking at. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that are on the rise that you're looking at. Michelle's talked about how much she likes Nico Collins, who actually might be the mojo that you're looking for, that you're trying to get in Lamb, because Collins is the guy. He's going to dominate targets, all the things that Lamb did. And then there's some vibes coming out of Dallas, well, right now in California, that aren't the best here. With Jerry Jones having to somehow diss Dak Prescott on the back door while talking about Micah Parsons' contract. And I think it's a bigger deal season for Dak Prescott than we think. Like, I know he's got the deal and all that, but in terms of the perception with his owners. So what does that mean? I think he's got to play better, more efficient, spread the ball around football. And that's why they said, okay, we're going to go get you a number 2 that's legitimately a big play guy. It'll look better than, no offense to Michael Gallup or Jalen Tolbert or these other guys they've had, but this is a guy that can actually legitimately be a big-time deep threat in this offense at Pickens. So we cannot throw away Pickens cutting into a lot of what Lamb does, or a healthy Jake Ferguson, as Michelle I looked at. I mean, I love Jake Ferguson this year because, again, he's got to be involved in this offense quite a bit. It's not going to be all deep shots to Pickens. So I think it's just ignoring the fact that Pickens and Ferguson are going to cut into quite a bit of what Lamb does. And this offense overall, I think, trying to figure itself out on the offensive line. Look, there's going to be volume. I think the Cowboys might win some ugly type games, but again, I don't see the volume existing at the same level. I mean, the Bengals are probably going to go throwing nuts here, and Chase just came off the Triple Crown. You have Justin Jefferson, he may be relied upon more with J.J. McCarthy, but with a veteran quarterback kind of on the hot seat a little bit for his performance, I think he's going to have to be more diversified in his targets away from CeeDee Lamb. So again, 8 to 12, no problem, even maybe 6 or 7, but taking him that high at number 3, I'm out on CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, it's not even just wide receiver 3. I mean, he's going right next to Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's going before
Right.
Ashton Genty and Derrick Henry. All guys I would prefer over CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, even Amon-Ra St. Brown. You brought up Nico Collins. CeeDee Lamb should be at the end of the first round, not towards, the beginning, in my opinion. So we're going to get through 4 more wide receivers that we think their draft cost is just a bit too high for our liking. We'll do that right after we hear from a couple of our sponsors. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget much smarter and save a lot more. Plus, managing money with my partner has never been smoother. We're able to track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com/LockedOnNFL for half off your first year.
This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is also brought to you by Rugiet. If you haven't heard about Rugiet, you need to now, because you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, but maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. More than 150,000 men have already made the switch. It's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read all the customer reviews to check out why it's helped a lot of guys feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off today. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety effectiveness or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. All right, it is time to continue the show and look at our next couple of wide receivers. We're not targeting in drafts, and this is more in the wide receiver 20 to 30 range. We're looking at wide receiver 2s and 3s that we're not looking to put on our team. So we've had Drake London and CeeDee Lamb at top. Michelle, who are you going with in the middle rounds at wide receiver that you're not touching this season?
This one's so easy for me, and I can't believe he's going as highly as he is. It's Chris Olave. He's going as wide receiver 31, which doesn't seem that high, but 69th overall. He's still going in the 6th round. And not only do you have to worry about his concussion history, right? If he gets one concussion, he's going to miss a huge chunk of time because he's been dealing with a ton of them in a short career. But also, you have to deal with the quarterback situation and what this offense is going to look like. I mean, with Derek Carr, he was just an okay fantasy asset, right? That's all he was. And now he's going to be playing with a rookie quarterback in Tyler Shuck, who would not be starting, I don't think, for really any other team in the NFL, at least as a rookie. And Chris Olave last year was the wide receiver 56 on average. Even in his first 2 years when he was showing some promise, he was the wide receiver 21 on average in 2023, wide receiver 25 in 2022. But if you're saying that's his ceiling, right, that's what you're going to give us, and you have to still take him in the 6th round. You have to worry about the quarterback situation, worry about the concussions, and he has really no ceiling on the season or really week to week. Like, I want nothing to do with Chris Olave. And like the guys that are going around him, and you got some rookies in Caleb Johnson at running back or Travis Hunter. Like, I would rather either of those two, Travis Hunter being the rookie wide receiver for the Jaguars, who I think has way more upside than Chris Olave, or you can go with a George Pickens or Chris Godwin or someone like that, or even Jerry Jeudy, who had such a great end of the season last year. And if Joe Flacco's the starter, we expect him to be very good. I just can't imagine sitting in the 6th, 7th, or even 8th round and wanting to take Chris Olave. Like, he would have to fall very, very far because the touchdowns have never been there for him in his career. 5 were the most he's ever had in a season in 2023. And you're really like, how many touchdowns are we really expecting Tyler Shook to throw this year? So I'm totally off the Chris Olave train.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when we did a show a little while ago looking at just the ADP versus the rankings, he was one guy where actually the experts had him higher than where he was going. And I think that might be a little bit of a mistake, where I think the ranking is a little aggressive on Chris Olave. Like, I think people are right to be a little bit wary of what you're getting him in. There's just that way the season ended also last year with Derek Carr. We didn't know what was going on with his future. So there's a little bit of concern there. How much is it going to be affecting him, like the injuries lingering as well? So it's a very risky pick. I'm not saying you don't take it. If he drops to that lower spot right outside the wide receiver 3, somewhere in the wide receiver 4 range, that's where you could target him. But definitely not a player that you really need to go after. Another one that I actually have a bigger head scratcher about where they're going, it's Zay Flowers. Again, Pro Bowler Zay Flowers from last year. Again, wide receiver 25. I don't know if I just like this type of receiver in general, like the smaller receiver who gets open, makes a few big plays, but is very inconsistent. He kind of reminds me of like other Ravens, really. Like, this has been the trend with the Ravens. I mean, we've seen it with Rashad Bateman, another first round pick. And just these guys that just come in. Even Marquise Hollywood Brown was like this, right? Like, you'd have a big game, blow up once in a while, then you'd wait, and there's like 4 games where there's nothing. And then you're like, okay, the numbers in the end added up to something okay as a startable wide receiver 3 in this case, because he's wide receiver 25 on the board. But there are so many mouths to feed in Baltimore. It is insane. You have 2 tight ends right away with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely that you look at. You have Bateman, who just doesn't seem to go away as a key target on this offense. So there's just so many people out there that Lamar Jackson has to feed. And this is also a run-first offense with Derrick Henry. So how are they going to get enough numbers with Zay Flowers? I just don't think he's going to give you all that much excitement. He's going to be okay if you set it and forget it, plug him in week to week, and maybe he's better in best ball where, okay, I just have an asset that I don't need to look at it, but he's going to produce after a while. But if you're looking week to week and you want a little bit more upside or excitement, somebody that you actually want to be kind of giddy to take, I don't think you're going to get it from Zay Flowers. So I'm off Zay Flowers. There's just too many other receivers I'm way more interested in. And honestly, you might as well take Bateman later and get the little limited response with his production. So, yeah, I'm off Zay Flowers. And again, I don't know why he's ranked this high.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you want to go with a Ravens wide receiver, just take Rashad Bateman way later. They offer you the same upside in any given week, and they offer the same downside in any given week. I mean, Zay Flowers, like you said, going as a wide receiver, 25? He only was a top 30 wide receiver 6 weeks last season, with one of those weeks being wide receiver 23. But like, he was only a top 10 wide receiver one time. You're taking a guy that's barely, rarely even ending where he's being drafted at wide receiver 25, and he gives you very little upside in any given week. And last year he had fewer than 9 points in 10 games. He had fewer than 6 points in 6 games. His downside is so low where he can actually lose you weeks. And there really is no week winning weeks that he's offering where you're like, okay, well, it's worth it because some weeks he's going to win me. Like, you might as well just go with Rashad Bateman, who had as many games with at least 10 fantasy points as Zay Flowers last year, and that was 7. So just if you're desperate to get a guy with Lamar Jackson, Rashad Bateman's going so much later, and that's where I would lean.
Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense with Zay Flowers to go in a different direction. Again, it's different, right? Chris Olave, quarterback concerns, offensive transition concerns. With Flowers, it's a good offense, but getting lost in the shuffle. So very interesting dichotomy. But again, 2 paths that lead us not to taking these receivers.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll discuss our least favorite late round wide receiver to target. Each of us have a young guy that had potential, but we're just not feeling it. We'll get to that right after we hear from our sponsor. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the chat group, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, bust, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, Vinnie and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Our league's been running through Yahoo for a while now because of their easy setup, great mobile app, and I just love how easy their message boards makes it to enjoy fun conversations with my league mates all season long. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins on August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, Vinny, let's finish up today's show by naming each of our least favorite wide receiver to target in the later rounds of drafts. Who is your guy?
Yeah, I was debating this for a while, and I was trying to find someone that had some interest. But I'm going to go with Josh Downs. He's going right outside wide receiver 40, around wide receiver 44. The funny thing is Michael Pittman is going after him in drafts, which is just shocking to me. But there's so much that I'm concerned about with the Colts passing game at this rate. Like, can't wait for this battle between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones to begin to give us a better idea. Like, I don't see any reason I need to target Downs. This offense is not trending toward Downs. Like, if even Anthony Richardson was there, he's inaccurate downfield. He also likes Alec Pierce and throwing to him in those deep shots. But if it's Daniel Jones, again, we've talked about it, he's more check down Charlie if you want him to be. Like, he's going to be more contained. He's going to use his legs. He's not going to force the ball downfield where the interceptions could be racked up, right? He's going to play more conservative in the second shot if he gets that starting job after being discarded by the Giants, right? So he's going to be more, what do you want me to do, Coach Steichen? Like, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like, throw to Pittman and Tyler Warren. They're going to get open in the middle of the field, throw to Pierce deep occasionally, or hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. I don't know how much Josh Downs is going to come up in the conversation. He's also not the most durable guy. He's quick and special. I think what could have been with Josh Downs, I don't know if we're going to see it materialize on this particular team, the Colts. Like, I love the talent. I think the usage is bad. I think his role is a little questionable. I think he's getting treated kind of like the Steichen third receiver in Philadelphia, right? Just getting lost and stuff. Well, now that you have a true tight end that they didn't really have, instead of this committee approach with Warren's going to cut in a lot to what these guys do. But I'd much rather have Michael Pittman Jr. because, again, short to intermediate routes, touchdowns, Pittman can provide all that to at least find a floor production where Downs are just going for the ceiling. And I don't know if there's much of one if you don't have the big arm of Richardson. A, if it's not a better accurate arm, if he starts. B, and C, if it goes to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Josh Downs is getting a lot of hype right now. I mean, I know he's still going late in drafts, but he does seem to be like a big guy that a lot of fantasy podcasts are talking about as a good value. So we're kind of going the opposite here, but I'm totally with you. Like, I do not see a great outcome for Josh Downs this year with this quarterback situation and this offense. Like, could he have a couple big games here and there? Sure, but I don't think you're going to be able to really predict when those are going to be. It's going to have to come off a couple, like, perfectly thrown balls from Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. Who wants their fantasy guys to have to rely on that happening? Not me, that's for sure. So yeah, I'm with you. Josh Downs seems like an exciting young player, but I'm not on board with him right now with where this offense looks like it's going to be.
Trade him, Colts. Yeah,
exactly. Now my guy's also a young rookie, actually, and he was taken in the second round by the Bears. It was a shocker pick, and it's Luther Burden the third. He's going super late in drafts. I mean, 12th round or later, wide receiver 56. But my thing is, even if you take him, I just think it's going to be a wasted pick, right? There's just not targets to go around. And it's kind of like Rome Odunze last year, even though I was much higher on Rome Odunze as a prospect than Luther Burden Jr. or Luther Burden III. Like, I actually think Rome Odunze is very, very, very good, and he'll be great in the NFL. Burden, I didn't even love as a prospect anyways, but we saw Odunze having to compete with targets from DJ Moore and Keenan Allen last year, and he just struggled to earn those targets, right, against those veterans. We saw Jackson Smith-Njigba in his rookie season struggle to get targets because of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And then once those guys got injured last year, he was able to get that opportunity, and now he has it by himself. But like, he has to compete with targets with not only just DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, but also Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland and DeAndre Swift. Like, it's just too much that there's not enough targets to go around. And I know Ben Johnson's clever enough to know how to utilize a guy like Luther Burden, but Luther Burden is a guy that's going to kind of need like his targets schemed for him as well. He's kind of more of that gadget type of wide receiver. I just don't see it working out for Luther Burden this year. Maybe down the road, but I'm completely off of him in his rookie season.
Yeah, his rookie season is questionable. I think even his keeper status is a bit questionable at this rate, because it's not like Rome Odunze is an old dude. DJ Moore is still somewhat in his prime. I mean, so when you look at this combination, and let's throw the parallel that I like to draw here, the Ben Johnson offense transferring in the NFC North from Detroit to Chicago. So let's look at this. How many wide receivers did we really sustain in that Lions offense? Well, we had a big play guy, Jameson Williams, and we had kind of the veteran guy who's going to get open all the time, and then Monroe St. Brown. You already have those two guys. Between Moore and Odunze, plenty of that. And Moore might actually be the big play guy, and Odunze might be more like St. Brown because you can move him around and all that. So we got those two guys, right? And then the next guy you look at, okay, tight ends. There was a main guy, which is Sam Laporta, but then they worked in other tight ends behind him, right? They would unknowingly steal touchdowns. So there'll be room a little bit for Colston Loveland in that role. But did you see a lot from the Lions' third receiver in this offense, the traditional third receiver, wideout? No, not really. Did they throw to the running backs quite a bit? Yep, they did with Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So DeAndre Swift comes in the mix. So you're absolutely right. When you add up all the roles, kind of changing the cast members, so to speak, in this Ben Johnson offense, where's Luther Burden going to be involved? I think it's going to be a tough road for him to actually get on the field and make things happen. Look, the Bears have had some issues, of course, drafting wide receivers in the past. I mean, I don't think Odunze would fall. They're hoping that he doesn't fall into the David Terrell or Kevin White realm of receivers, right? That would be awful. But Luther Burden certainly could. I mean, the second-round pick, that's why Michelle said was surprising, especially because they had Odunze last year, and then they took Loveland as a surprise first-round pick. They were debating Loveland and Warren. So when you look at that, I mean, just no. I mean, unfortunately, Burden is in a horrible landing spot. I thought, could he be in Cincinnati, be a third guy? Could he be a number two guy somewhere else? That didn't happen. So, again, maybe his talent was lesser, and that's why he fell into the second round. And he's going to have a tough way climbing into a key role, not only for this year, Michelle, but I think just in general in the next couple of years if Ben Johnson stays there.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson and all these weapons, it's going to be tough for him to really break out in the NFL unless there's a bunch of injuries, and then maybe it can happen.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's going to be too hard to hold him for that long on your bench if he's not seeing any targets at all. So that will be it for today's episode. If you want more NFL talk, the Locked On NFL Top 100 has been released on Locked On Sports today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL host of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We will be back tomorrow talking about the tight ends that we think have the worst values in the draft. So don't miss that. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.